2.
Hey, Lynz, what are you listening to?
Brian, you share yours and I'll share mine.
With millions of podcasts, how do you choose?
We are here to help you find that next bingeable podcast.
Or that piece of content you'll follow regularly.
You're listening to Feed Drops. Welcome, everybody, to Feed Drops. We're here today in the beautiful Irvine, California studios, the Sitch Radio studios. My name is Lynz, and I am here with Brian. Brian, I'm going to start with a question today.
What you got for me?
What was the first podcast that you shared with somebody else?
Wow. So you get to see some nerdy side of Brian. The podcast was entitled Boag World, and it was a podcast about web development.
All right. Any clue how long ago might that have been? And then who'd you share it with?
I shared it with a classmate. I was in school learning web development, and it must have been 2007-ish, 2008-ish.
All right.
And now the podcast, it's still in existence, but you have to pay to get the back catalog. They are no longer producing. There are two guys out of England.
Awesome. So you've been sharing podcasts with people for 15 something years.
For
Who
a little
knows?
bit.
You may have skipped a year or two in there at some point, but that's pretty cool. I can think back to, I think it was 2011. And for me, it was the WTF podcast with Mark Maron, and I had gone on a road trip with a buddy, and he had played me episodes, and so then when we got back, it was all I could talk about.
I've attempted to listen to WTF and just I don't know, not a cup of tea for me.
Right. At the time, I was doing stand-up comedy, and so it was sort of like inside baseball kind of thing for me.
How did I not know you used to do stand-up?
Oh yeah, for 2 years when I lived in the Bay Area, I did open mics like 3 to 5 a week, easy.
Wow.
I was also doing music open mics, so sometimes I would do those were earlier in the night, and so I would do a music open mic, and then I would meet my stand-up friends at another place and do stand-up.
Wow.
And I think I did it because as a folk singer, you got to be funny in between songs. You got to be sharp, and you got to do this stuff, or else people are bored very fast.
Yeah.
But it's been really helpful for podcasting too. I digress because now we've been talking way long, but the idea was to talk about, podcasts we've shared, because this is a podcast discovery show where we share podcasts that are around now that are maybe even submitting to us. So Brian and I do this every week, and we're having a lot of fun with it. As evidenced, Brian's just choking on all the fun.
My apologies. I was getting ready to say, if you're listening to this, we encourage you to share this show with somebody else, because in sharing this episode, you're sharing 3 podcasts, this one and the 2 we cover. So, Lynz, what do you have for us today?
Today, I have a podcast called the NFT Chill Podcast, and it's pretty prescient because we've been talking about NFTs, working with Uncut.fm ourselves to try and look at NFTs for this community, but it's got a lot of other topics that we'll get into after the break. But it's the Web3 world. Again, like last episode, I'm a newbie to it, and so these episodes kind of help me learn more. What have you got?
So I have for you today, She Gets It Pod, and this is hosted by a young lady. We're going to dive into a little bit more about her and her podcast after this quick break. All right, thanks for sticking with us through that short break. Lynz, tell me about this show.
All right. So the NFT Chill podcast is a really kind of, the title says a lot about it, but it is a kind of low chill energy vibe talking about NFTs and Web3 things. The host is called The Mayor. So if you're feeling like you want that kind of energy, the mayor is here to kind of deliver you this like chill vibe conversations about NFTs. And this episode was about making space for women in the world of NFTs and what that could be. And so he had a guest named Ankita, and she has a project called Cybercosmos World. And that is an NFT project that is, or a Web3 project that is built around making space for women to feel like they are at the table, able to participate fully and not kept out of the game as they may have been in the past. So she also has experience in cybersecurity. That seems to be where she's done a lot of things. So she brought a very informed thing. And why don't we introduce her with the first quote here?
Search is a female-led organization focused on educating and onboarding as many women as possible to Web3. We want to open the doors of Web3 to women everywhere, make it easily accessible. That's what we have been working on since we started.
That's pretty cool because, yeah, the development of computers and IT was heavily dominated by men. And it's good that she's out there, building community around women so they can come together and learn. That's cool.
Yeah. And it relates back to something in the podcast world that sort of has been on the discussion that most podcast creators are men also. And as two men here on this show, we can't change who we are, but we can introduce voices that are talking about a wider table, a bigger table for everybody at it. And so it felt like a great way for me to learn not only about the NFT space, but also kind of say, hey, I'm going to use this platform so that people will feel like they can learn themselves and have a seat at the table.
That's pretty cool. And it's cool that she's opening the world up of Web3 because, I mean, I know a lot of guys that are just blinders on. They don't want to take the time to understand it. And in the back of my mind, it's like, how many people were resistant to computers? How many people were resistant to, people don't like change and we resist change. But with the internet, I think that opened a lot of people's eyes. But yet still some people like Web3, next week.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've talked about this a few times ourselves, but a lot of people, when we talk about NFTs, they just sort of go, NFTs are a scam. NFTs are a scam. And right. And look, art and art speculation that a lot of the NFTs sort of have been built around is kind of scam-like. And the art world itself is kind of scammy in that way. But the sort of underlying architecture of a thing which means something that is agreed upon meaning, it's like having an e-signature or a notary, right?
Yeah,
like
it's that smart contract behind that digital art or that digital asset that's where the value is.
Yeah. And I want to be in a world where women get to use every life experience they have to think about how to use these smart contracts. That's going to make all of our worlds better. And so to me, I want more brains imagining how to use this to make our world better. And this seems like a little bit of a step towards that.
And on this topic, when something new comes out, I don't consider myself an early adopter, but I'm an early investigator. When TikTok came about, I'm like, okay, let me go download this app and create a profile and see what it's about. And I'm typically not one to go, "Oh, light bulb moment, there's value here, let me dive in." I'm kind of like, yeah, I should probably. And then I do. But when NFTs first came out, I went, I want to learn about this. So I figured out I want to buy this NFT. Well, I need wax. Well, I don't have wax. So now I had to go to a trading account and transfer money into a wallet so I could convert it to wax so I could buy this NFT. And then I purchased a couple more NFTs that were regenerative that would produce additional NFTs. And I'm like, okay, I have an understanding of what this is. I'm not all into where I'm going to buy and sell day trade NFTs to earn, but there's some beautiful art being created. And to be the registered, verified, provable owner of it, I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and imagine, if we get the whole population starting to play and people start to come up with new forms of art and new forms of things um, that to me is when it really starts to open up. And so we're still at such an early adopter phase, or I mean, we're like a stage past that. It's the investigators who have now dabbled, the early dabblers.
Well, and I mean, it's the whole concept of the smart contract that lives behind that visual asset, to where you could have your entire medical record on a smart contract and you own it, and it's verified yours, and you could share it with the doctor you're seeing today versus next week. um I mean, that's
They
a
could augment the smart contract with the findings they had that would be added to your thing.
yeah, I mean, and I see some long-term benefit. I think the awesomeness isn't even discovered just yet, and there's some pretty cool things happening.
No, I think the reason people think it's a scam is because it's been so much this art speculation business. And so the real utility is just being discovered. And it's a compound thing where like somebody comes up with a basic thing, someone goes, oh, I can yes and that. And it kind of raises. So
Yeah.
I do have one more quote, and it'll help us kind of round out this experience. It's again from the guest Ankita.
If you look at most of the people that build the internet and build Web 2, there haven't been that many women who build that space. And we want to ensure that, unlike the prior generation of the internet, women don't get left behind. Another interesting stat about crypto tends to start as a side hustle or a side hobby for a lot of people. And because women tend to be busier with kids, and I think also just generationally, men having a bigger seat at the table in the financial world is a big indicator of why the space is male dominated. Most financial worlds are heavily male dominated. Some of the things that we're trying to do at Surge is having this community and having this safe place where women can come and learn together. Men also love to learn among their friends. When I started to get into crypto, I started to text any friends that were interested in crypto about it, because you're more prone to stay interested in something if you have a community to do it with.
Because misery loves company. No, I'm kidding. It was that way
But
for
it's
me.
true a little bit. Yeah.
I learned about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy would appreciate it. Let me share it with him. And quite a few of my friends have gotten into it and have profited some. And it's fun to do together.
I think you have to have a buddy, or you'll either have to make buddies or you'll have to have them already. Because I think that, again, I mean, partially because there's the possibility of being fleeced is so high at each stage, because you're like, wait, I have to set up 9 accounts at these different exchanges, and I have to make sure they all talk. And did I just give away all my data? Right. And so if you have a buddy, you go, no, I read this article and this is the safe way to do it. You can validate your experience. So I would say, if you're at all interested in NFTs, first of all, listen to this NFT and Chill podcast. That's going to be one way to kind of dig in when it drops on Just the Drops later this week. But also, find a buddy and reach out to us if you're like, hey, be my buddy. Like we're sociable, friendly guys, and we like learning, and learning together is fun.
And with such a dynamic thing as crypto and the amount of altcoins and projects out there, in my opinion, I don't know anybody that can stay up on all of it. And my NFT and crypto behavior is very limited. And every once in a while, I'll be listening to a podcast and go, let me check that coin out. And I'll go do some research. I typically ask a couple buddies who are well versed, and before I make a decision, before I invest anything. And you're absolutely 100% right. Having a buddy is a great way to explore anything.
Mm-hmm. And so our first podcast highlight is over, and its companion, its buddy, is coming up after the break.
All right, welcome back. And today I have for you She Gets It Pod. This is hosted by Chantal or Chantal. I don't like to mispronounce names, so I'll do it both ways. And this young lady's actually involved in quite a few different shows. There's a link to her website that shares all of that with you. But the title of this episode is what caught me, and it was Can a Guy Marry the Funny Girl? Something along those lines. And I went, interesting. Let me listen. And her and some friends get around and chat and banter about that. And I've prepared a couple of clips for you today, and we're going to kick off number one.
Like, do I go out? Yes. Do I go out to dinner? Yes. But you're not gonna find me in a club. Like, the most lit you're gonna find me is at a cigar lounge. And like that.
And that's where and that's why I'm just like, maybe I'm too odd for what people do that's common in my age range, because I don't like being in cigar lounges because I'm going to smell of shit that I don't partake in. I'm not a drinker because I can have like a little bit of liquor and I'm like a 50-pound white woman.
Well,
So like I don't have a high drink tolerance, and I don't like
yeah,
to be unlike my controlled self in front of strangers. I would rather be home.
facts, facts. And to piggyback on that though, that is something that separates married fun from like just single fun. Like that
Yeah.
whole being out and being so drunk that you let loose all of your cares and fears like out in public. Married people, happy married people don't do that. Happy married people are back in the house by 10 o'clock, because we all know that after 12 o'clock, ain't anything that happened after 12 o'clock is questionable.
So, Lynz, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a pretty common thing to not feel like the stuff that is done by people out on to get found and to be out in the single scene isn't. You're not doing the stuff you like doing. Your stuff. It's like you have to pay the ticket price to play, and you're like, you got to go to places you don't enjoy in order to meet people. And it sounds like,
Well, I mean, and the behavior when you're out as a single individual, you're peacocking more. You're trying to grab the attention of those you spot across the bar or across the cigar lounge. And
you're attracting them for behavior you're not going to use when you're together,
Right.
right? So it's a funny mix where you're like, oh, the thing that brought us together was this insane drinking habit to cope with the fact that we were single in this terrible environment.
right.
And now it's like we've kind of mellowed out and we're sober and we're chill and we enjoy chill time, but that's not how we found each other or the thing we had in common when that all started.
Right. Now it's, trips to the museum.
Yeah. And like Sunday afternoon naps,
Oh, man.
Mm.
Yes, Sunday afternoon naps. I love the banter back and forth of the friends. They did a really good job. And later on in the episode, I do not have a clip. Others were introduced to the conversation and their viewpoints on it. But I think if we are single right now, we exhibit a lot of the behavior they're going to speak of. And if we are not single, in a relationship, married or not, you can sit back and realize you have settled down quite a bit, and just growth through life.
Yeah. And sometimes you miss it, but not long.
Dude, I just think if I had 10% of the money I've spent in bars sitting in a bank account, how much happier I would be.
Yeah. No, there's a year and a half of my life I'd redo, I think, if I had been, but I was dealing. Dealing with life.
Yep. All right, here is clip number 2 of She Gets It Pod.
we live in like a microwave society, so everything is like kind of sped up a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think if people would slow down, like just a tad bit, if they would just slow down just a tad bit, they would actually realize whether the fun that they're having with a person, like whether it's a genuine fun or whether it's or whether it's just all right, this just for the moment kind of thing. Because it don't take long. It take like 3 months to really find out like if a person is who they say they are. Like for real. It take like 3 months. Like in 3 months, you're gonna see like all sides, like something good is gonna happen and you're gonna see how they react. You're gonna see something that happens that make them upset and and you can see how they react.
You know, I was working on an episode of a young couple, and he, with intention, made their first date an escape room because he wanted to see how she reacted, handled, dealt with stress and puzzle and game and awkwardness. And then the funny thing is, unbeknownst to them, the room they were put in, they were handcuffed to a bed together. First date, it's like, but what you're right. 3 months is enough time to see the good, bad, the ugly. And are there things we can do to expedite that? Yes, of course. But I don't think a lot of people enter dating with the intent of to find the one. It's to find companionship and see if they're the one
Hmm.
and take a slower approach to it. But 3 months, that's good advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're not feeling like it's gangbusters at 3 months point, then it probably runs course, and I just, like that's some real wisdom. And I was just nodding really hard through a lot of what he was saying there. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, no,
Yep.
And the truly wrong stuff makes itself available very fast.
Yeah.
It's the almosts that linger a little bit. You're like, I could almost see this work, and this might, but
Yeah. If you've got to force it, yeah, go back to the bar and find somebody new.
yep.
Well, that is She Gets It Pod, hosted by Chantal, and her website, link, and Twitter handle are in the show notes below. I encourage you to head on over there and check it out. Quite a few episodes out. You might find this show to be your cup of tea and or one of the other shows she's involved in producing. But thank you to Chantal for submitting your show to Feed Drops. You too can submit your podcast to Feed Drops if you are a podcaster. If you're a listener, we encourage you to share this show with other people looking for bingeable content they might want to check out.
Yeah, and if you would like to see sort of our whole slate of things in one place, you can check out our Substack newsletter that goes out weekly, and it has audio and video of our episodes, and you can kind of keep track of what's going on there. Sign up to get it in your inbox, and what's next? What else? How do we wrap it? How do you fly this plane? Where do we land it? What's going on?
I'll take the controls from here.
Thank you.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Lynz is doing a phenomenal job. Thank you, Lynz.
You're very welcome.
Crushing the TikTok. And I'm actually having more fun on this Twitter feed than most of the other Twitter feeds I'm involved in. There's some great conversation going back and forth, and the community is really building. And on the community note, the Feed Drops NFT founding member NFT has dropped. A link to our uncut page is in the show notes below. You have to be an NFT holder to get involved in the community. However, we're going to be minting a special NFT that you can only get by walking up to Lynz Florin at Podcast Movement. Lynz, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is an exciting deal. So, we've been working with Uncut.fm to create NFTs around the podcasts we're sharing and to build some community around it as well. And so we're going to do a special edition and a free NFT for anyone who comes up and talks to me at Podcast Movement, you'll get a free special edition NFT for from Feed Drops for the Podcast Movement time. And we're still looking at what exactly it will have in terms of the smart contract pieces, what you get in exchange for it. But it will certainly get you into the community on uncut.fm, get you into the Discord that we've built, and get us sort of talking and into a little club together.
Yeah. And I'm not even going to get to own one because I'm not going to Podcast Movement.
Well, we'll a single tear will roll down his cheek. We're going to make a special NFT with a single tear just for Brian.
Hey, and if anybody is on the fence about attending a podcast conference or meetup group or local libraries, I encourage you, get out and go to one of these events hosted by creatives, attended by creatives, and magic can happen. Just 4.5 short years ago, Lynz and I met for the first time at the Outlier Podcast Festival in Los Angeles. And here we are. We're on a show together.
Yeah. And we're in Southern California. If you are passing through, look us up, reach out. We'd love to connect. If you live anywhere within driving distance, then let's make a time to meet up in person. Let's do an interview or an episode or a meetup. So we love podcasters and listeners and building community. So please, we are open for business. Reach out to us. We're here for it.
The water's cold. The coffee, like the mics, are hot.
Indeed. The jokes are lukewarm.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of Feed Drops. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Talkity Tick. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Yeehaw!